All right, welcome everyone. As Jeremy said, I'm Kim Meinert from Waukesha County, and when they were first looking for presentations, everyone's like, oh, everyone should present. What's your presentation going to be? And someone said you should, talk about your dashboard, and I'm like, oh Lord, aren't people tired of looking at those? And watching Esri videos about how to put together a dashboard. So I thought, let's take this a different direction. And I called up my friends, my neighbors in Milwaukee County and Washington County, because I noticed that there was kind of almost a flow of evolution to our three dashboards that sometimes mirrored each other and sometimes diverged. And I thought that might be a little bit more interesting. So we're not going to make this a terribly technical presentation, although if someone has questions about how we did something, we can certainly answer those. What will we talk about? It will be, we're going to compare our challenges. We're going to compare what players we all had to interact with. We're going to compare just the overall evolution of our GIS dashboards. And you might notice the theme. I thought of it at 4 a.m. this morning as I was lying awake. And I was thinking about the evolution of our dashboards and also we just watched The Toys That Made Us, the Star Trek episode. So then I had that on my mind about how like the USS Enterprise started out really like rinky dink and got really fancy, So anyway, that's where that came from. So we're going to take a very short tour of each of our dashboards, but then we're going to kind of have more of a conversation, panel discussion, if you will, about some of those various themes that I brought up. And certainly if there's any questions, put them in the chat. We'll be happy to answer them when we have time. So going to, since I'm already sharing my screen, I'll just do my dashboard. So this is Waukesha County's dashboard. It started out as a single internal screen that no one else could see except our emergency management people. In fact, it even started in our emergency management office has their own ARC Online account. It started over there. As this was all coming down the pike in March, Jim and I reached out and said, hey, can we help in some way? I regret that now. No. It just kind of kept rolling from there. We originally got our data from dispatch, actually, not even our health department, because the health department was gathering the data every day or multiple times a day. They were watching it like cases come in one by one, I think, at that point. And they were telling dispatch, who I also have a relationship with, because they wanted to put alerts on those addresses where those people lived. So if they had to call an ambulance, the emergency or the responders would know what they were getting into. So then they passed it along to me, and twice a day I would update this dashboard, and all it had on it was just the number of cases, the status of each case, whether they were recovered or not after, the 14 days that they had finally figured out what's the magic number. And it had a stats by municipality. And that's really all it was. So obviously you can see now we have more. We've got all sorts of, facts and figures. We've got, I was just noting, our map looks very boring right now. And that's because back in the fall, I had to change all of my ranges quite significantly. And now with the lull we've had in cases, we have, I'm gonna have to go back in and change that back down, I guess. But that's okay, that's good news. So we, at first we started with recovered cases per municipality. Then when that number got big and scary, we switched to active cases because that was more of a picture of what was going on at that time, not, you know, overall. So we have active cases by municipality, deaths by municipality, and then the same thing for census tract. You know, and then we've got, you know, the same numbers everyone else has. We've got some trends charts for the last couple of weeks to kind of see how the trend line is going. We've got some hospital data to show, you know, what the status of our hospital beds and ventilators are in our county. We've got unemployment information that we get from workforce development once a week. We've got, whoa. We've got school district boundaries with active cases per school district, so we can keep an eye on that. And then our newest tab now is vaccine data, which is only updated once a week right now. And that just shows kind of just some basic stats, nothing real specific, but I like to see those numbers go up. That's fun. So that's my brief tour. I'm going to turn it over to, who flipped a coin? Was it Eric or Zach that won the coin toss?
I thought I was going next.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Because yeah, you're right. You're right. We did decide that.
Okay, well that just changed. It flipped screens. Can you see my dashboard?
Yep.
Okay. So like everybody else, we started out pretty simple with just case counts and total recovered, total deaths. We're a little bit different in that we have a combined health department. So it's the Washington Ozaukee Public Health Department. So we were showing both counties' data. So on most of these graphs, you can, you know, toggle between both county, one county. So that's what we started out with. And, you know, it didn't take long, and public demand for more information became, you know, unavoidable, I guess. So we started, you know, breaking it out finer than the county level. And where some people show municipalities and census tracts, like Kim just showed, what they decided to do for us is that they wanted zip code. That wouldn't have been my first choice because we have a few zip codes that, you know, just touch Washington County, and you kind of get into those issues with small numbers in those cases. Yep. But nonetheless, that's what they wanted. So we show zip codes kind of both in tabular form, just total confirmed by zip code, and again, this is for both counties. And then we also show the zip codes on the map like most people do. This vaccination information is up here. This is the most recent edition. These are at this point just PNG files that are put into here because the Esri gauge tool that we wanted to use didn't have all these nice options to, you know, label different pieces and put, you know, what the target goal is of 80% in Ozaukee County. So for right now, it's just an image, but I think we're going to be improving on that shortly. One of the requests we kind of got midway through this was that they wanted the information that we showed to be more in line with the metrics that people were using to make public health orders or public health recommendations. And one of the things DHS had on their screen and what's used quite a bit here at the county is the burden metric, or the number of positive cases in the last 14 days. So we added this burden graph to the top, and that was fun, but again, they liked it so much that we had to then break down the burden by zip code, which we did. Now this looks pretty ugly when you first look at it, but with these selectors, it's kind of nice. You can compare, you know, the West Bend zip code to the MEC 1 zip code if you want, and kind of see how the charts go over time. So again, that was added midway through. And then once when school was starting to open up in fall in September, I don't know what it's like where you are, but there was a strong push to have kids in classrooms. So that's the way it operates primarily here in our counties. And I was said, you know, like Waukesha County has this really great map on school districts. Can you make something that looks just like that? So with Kim's help, I made something that looks pretty close to that, where again, you click on here, and initially we had on here the number of active cases broken down into different age bands. If you were watching close when Kim showed off her dashboard, that was part of it. But when that court case happened in Waukesha County, essentially suing the state to prevent the release of outbreaks, it was determined that the school district level data was close enough that they took that off of our dashboard too. So right now we're just showing the burden metric by school district, and this involves a geocoding process, and all of the concerns about PO boxes and everything else you deal with geocoding addresses is kind of built into the burden for school district, because that's not an exact science, not nearly as much as the other ones. So that's kind of what we had. We were showing outbreaks on our main dashboard as well, but had to take those off at the same time. So that's kind of the nickel tour of our dashboard. So at this point, we'll turn it over to Zach, and you can see what Milwaukee County is doing.
Right, thanks, Eric. I'm going to line up my screen share here. All right, can everyone see our Milwaukee County dashboard?
Yes.
Okay, so this is our main landing page, and it's the tab that closest resembles what the dashboard looked like at launch on March 19th of last year. And here we've been tracking cases and deaths. Recently, we started adding hospitalizations all across the county and trying to break out our data geographically at the census tract level. As the pandemic rolled on, it was clear to us that we're going to need to add more info as the science developed and the focus on particular metrics changed over time. So we quickly expanded to showing testing data, and then hospital capacity followed pretty shortly after it. There are two areas of high interest at the outset of the pandemic, and they're still pretty popular today. And after we got over the initial rush of reporting cases, testing data, and hospital capacity, we were able to get ourselves in sort of a steady state over the summer, and we got into the process of developing and rolling out new tabs every few weeks or months as needed. And from the outset of the project, the overall goal was to provide a tool that a wide variety of people could find useful. And that mindset guided our expansion with a focus on public health officials who are looking to dive into data, and this can be seen in our municipality trends here. This is actually a Power BI dashboard that we embedded within our ArcGIS dashboard. And here, those trained public health experts could kind of pick through and dive into the data themselves, breaking it down by municipality, age range, or race and ethnicity, and giving them a tool to spot trends within their community. We also wanted to assist local leaders who were looking for guidance and how they might direct policy. And here we have our key health and safety indicators tab for the county. We also wanted to provide guidance in how local leaders may direct resources geographically based on a combination of both testing rates and positivity rates with our SAFER model that we developed here. And we also wanted to ensure that the average resident could make sense of all the numbers being thrown around. It was tasked, OEM, the Milwaukee County Office of Emergency Management, was tasked with providing a narrative every week to help kind of put into context what we were seeing in our community. And we thought, hey, this would be really helpful just for your average person trying to make sense of those numbers that are constantly being tossed around. And in addition to reporting our total numbers, we wanted to look at 30-day spans and 14-day spans, with 14 days kind of representing the active burden of cases and 30 days to get a snapshot at hospitalizations. And last but not least, we started rolling out vaccination data as soon as it became available to us. And we are looking to expand on this page in the near future when we can get some more data in. And that is a brief tour of Milwaukee County's COVID dashboard.
Thank you, Zach. So I think you'll notice some similarities and some differences. It's kind of interesting when Waukesha County would decide they wanted to put something new on their dashboard. And when I say Waukesha County, I mean the cabinet usually, or, you know, sometimes it was more from the health department. I would either get a request that started with, so Milwaukee County has this thing, or I would get almost the opposite. So the state put up this, and I feel like we need to do it too. So those were the kind of the directions, you know, and obviously there was some internal, you know, requests too that were more unique to our area. But I'm wondering, Zach and Eric, if you saw similar directions, different directions. Obviously, now Zach, we should explain that Milwaukee County does not have their own health department. So I feel like that probably drove a lot of the amount of information you have on your dashboard.
Yeah, that is definitely true. Because we didn't have a public health department, this kind of got tasked to the Office of Emergency Management, because we have an emergency medical services division that is responsible for tracking and training all of our different local EMS providers. And within the OEM EMS system, we also had a chief medical officer, Dr. Ben Weston, who was able to kind of take on this role of our county public health point person. And our team kind of flowed from there. With him, we had a small team working on things, mostly OEM staff, a couple of data people, tremendous help from the Land Information Office. Some of you may know Lee Frederick, the Enterprise GIS Administrator, who is able to automate and improve a lot of our processing tasks. But we were, able to keep a small focused team with our medical director, Dr. Ben Weston, being the conduit between our emergency operations center and the dashboard folks themselves.
Interesting. Eric?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, we have a combined health department. A few years ago, Ozaukee County and Washington County merged their health departments into a single organization. They have still physical offices in both counties. All of the employees are Ozaukee County employees. Washington County serves IT to both offices, whether it be in Port Washington or in West Bend. So we're still kind of figuring that out in terms of the support of it, I would have to say. So as far as the dashboard, I pretty much took most direction from the public health director. But it was interesting because, you know, you'd also get, you know, email requests from the county's own information officer saying, you know, hey, you know, we'd like to present this information. And it's like, well, that's for you guys to take up on the political level. I'll display whatever you tell me to. But, you know, as Kim said, you know, it was the same sort of thing. The vaccination, they really liked what Kenosha County had done. So we kind of copied Kenosha County on that. Some of the school district, they really liked what Waukesha County had done. So you could really tell that both the public health and the policy people were keeping an eye on what their peers were doing and didn't want to be left behind. And it was really valuable, I think, having a support organization amongst the land information community that you didn't feel like you were starting from scratch each time, where you could definitely learn from what they had done. And you know, I do need to say that, you know, Christina over at Ozaukee County was very helpful too in terms of base data and really whatever I needed to make sure that what we were showing accurately reflected both counties, because, you know, I'm just not as familiar with what happens on that side of the county line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Waukesha County probably has the most kind of standard situation where it's just the county health department and it's very kind of top down, and that certainly made it a little easier for information flow and stuff like that. And you know, I'd mentioned that we had originally got our data from the dispatch center. That changed in relatively quickly, maybe a month or two, to then coming directly from the health department, but it was still in spreadsheet form. So we were geocoding addresses from a spreadsheet every day, along with, you know, a lot of those charts started to come into play. Those were, we had a monster Excel spreadsheet, kind of linked to the one that we got from the health department, so we could like parse all this out so that Arc Pro could consume it properly, and then, you know, push it up to Arc Online. But then eventually IT got involved and they started downloading data directly from WEDS, which is the state health reporting database, directly into a SQL database, which was a whole lot easier to consume. So that really helped, and it helped, you know, make those daily updates a lot faster when you're not dealing with spreadsheets and fat fingers and, you know, stuff like that. So I'm curious how you guys got your data, and has it changed at all as the time progressed?
Yeah, we're still getting it in spreadsheet form, and you know, maybe that's the difference between the size of my county compared to the size of yours, where the spreadsheet's still kind of working for us.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly how health department got it, I don't think I know all the answers to that, but the way that it came to me was a real simple table that had the county, the zip code, the age, the date the person tested positive, and the gender, and that was pretty much it. And because the data came to me in Excel, it was almost easier, and still was easier, to do the first part of the analysis right in Excel. So I have a sheet in Excel that mimics the table format that's ultimately hosted in ArcGIS Online, and a bunch of Excel formulas that summarize the raw data into the summary statistics that I need to upload to the dashboard. So
Yep.
so yeah, that works out pretty well. Like I said, when we added some of the school district data, then we had to start geocoding. That's not done on a daily basis, thank goodness. And so that just comes as a, yeah, right. So that just comes as a list of addresses, and we make do with that as we get it.
We're getting a little bit of an echo. Do you guys all have your volume down on, like, you have the presentation going somewhere else? No?
Just turn my volume down. Hopefully that helps. From the Milwaukee County perspective, we were able to get access to WEDS very, very quickly, and able to actually get it sent to us in a spreadsheet form. And it was our data analytics manager at the EMS division pretty much became her full-time job in the first few months of this pandemic, to wrangle and understand that data, and just going back and forth with folks at the state and our local public health departments to understand the limitations of what we were working with. That was a very important part of the process. A lot of the stuff, I always say we are building the plane as we fly with this dashboard, because a lot of the times we would be asked, hey, we really want to communicate something about this specific topic, be it testing or hospital capacity. And then, of course, it's pandemic. There's a huge sense of urgency. So we want to get something out as soon as humanly possible to help folks make decisions. So what we would do, I mock up a tab on our dashboard, figure out what the graphs needed to look like, and charts and indicators, and then figure out how to structure that data so that it could be fed into ArcGIS Online, and we could make it look like what we needed it to look like. And from that point, then work backwards and take a look at this raw, potentially messy spreadsheet and say, how do I get this to something that can easily be thrown into ArcGIS Online? And at the very beginning, I spent 2 to 4 hours, maybe 6 hours every day doing manual processing to try and get 2 updates out each day. And eventually, thankfully, we were able to automate a lot of those processes over time. But again, we're building the plane as we fly here. So it became a really backwards way of doing things, which in my experience, that's kind of how you have to do things in emergency management. You would love to be able to sit down, take the time, sketch out your project, figure out exactly how your data needs to be structured, think about it once, hit run, and you never have to worry about it again except for a little maintenance. But in the world of emergency management, taking that time can be lost so quickly because your entire project and scope can change in the time it takes to send an email. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we kind of found the process of let's do things by hand, let's work on things manually, and once we know this is what we need to do, let's move forward and automate things. Let's move our data into a SQL server, and that worked really well for us.
Awesome. Yeah, we had a question in the chat. So have you taught anyone outside of GIS staff to do the updates? That would be a no from us. That would have been great. I was doing data updates 7 days a week for a long time until people finally decided that was nuts and said, we're gonna put something on our dashboard that says we're only doing Monday through Friday and no holidays. So that was awesome when they did that. And then eventually I did start getting help from 2 of my other office mates. So that was a big help too. But no, we aren't. There are a couple of web front ends that IT built for a couple of the people that enter kind of that extra data so that they can just plug it right into the SQL table. But that's about it.
Yeah, I can add to that. We started with the ESRI template for our dashboard. And if you've used it, you know that the data entry was designed to be a survey 1, 2, 3 form so that anybody could enter it. Mm-hmm. But quite honestly, the health department staff was so swamped. I mean, the likelihood of that happening was going to be pretty small. You know, they just, you know, when it got crazy in fall, they couldn't keep up with the contact tracing. It really, pretty much anybody at the county who you know, you could steal a few hours a day.
Yep.
They were taught how to be contact tracers. So, you know, I didn't really feel like I should be going to them and say, hey, can you learn this survey 1, 2, 3 form for me? But that was actually, you know, perhaps one of my frustrations too, because I set it up with the assumption that I wouldn't be maintaining it. Well, you know, if I were maintaining this myself, I wouldn't have done it that way. So eventually, you know, a couple months into it, you know, after cursing that every day, I'm like, I'm not going to do it this way anymore. I finally built, you know, an import process that worked better for me, and no looking back after that. So, you know, I think in an ideal world, you'd create something for health department to do it, but you know, when things were as crazy as they were, I just don't think it was practical in this case.
Mm-hmm.
That was yeah. So kind of when I signed up for GIS and emergency management, it was with the understanding that you'd have to work some nights and weekends. But typically that lasts for about a week or 2, and then the storm is gone. And folks are into recovery and you're back working 9 to 5. Never really anticipated a year-long event occurring. So I kind of knew that what I was getting into. I, like Kim, worked, you know, several days, 7 days a week. And it seemed like our dashboard was constantly shifting. It felt like it was constantly shifting, and the data that fed into it was constantly shifting. And most of our stuff, or all of our stuff, is custom done. We just kind of took the dashboard that was all the dashboard functions available and just ran with it. And it's like, okay, here's what we want the picture to be like. Sometimes we'd sit in meetings and draw sketches and just be like, this is what we need to communicate. And then it's just like, all right, I've never done that before, but I guess I can try and rig something together with duct tape and popsicle sticks to get you what you need to show. So it was not very practical throughout the first few months of the pandemic, because it wasn't practical to train somebody else on how to do this because things were shifting so much. And I kind of felt that I had built a muscle memory into what needed to be done. And I've recently started documenting like all the different steps and stuff that we take. And I kind of thought, because ours is so heavily customized and we're able to leverage a lot of Python processing and using it to automate our refresh process, that there were so many little kind of things to do here and there that I'd been doing for so long. It felt like me passing this off to someone, especially someone who doesn't have any GIS experience, would be like teaching an alien how to drive a car. And you'd think like, oh yeah, you turn on the ignition and you drive. But some of the things get to be a little nitpicky and technical if you're not in GIS, that you literally have to step back and say, all right, this is what a car is. It has 4 doors. Like here in the front left, that's a door. And you're gonna need to put the key in the door and twist it. It's just become so detailed that it wasn't really practical at this point. But that is definitely something that I'll be incorporating into future projects. We totally understand that this is a pandemic. We need to get things done as soon as we possibly can, but a valuable lesson for the future of trying to like, how can we put this tool in the hands of others?
Yeah, those are some great points. I went through a lot of similar, it was hard to pass it off, even to another GIS professional because of the duct tape and the popsicle sticks. And you have to point out your duct tape and popsicle sticks to someone else. And you're like, okay, well, just jiggle this over here if this falls out. And, it definitely helped when we switched over to SQL Server. And it gave us as arduous as it was working with multiple IT people and each having different parts and public health, it gave us an opportunity to stop and look at the process and improve it quite a bit. So that really helped streamline our everyday after that. I think if we hadn't have done that, there still might be a lot more duct tape. I don't know. But in the troubleshooting too, there's so many moving pieces sometimes that, it's great if nothing goes wrong, but if something does go wrong, how do I fix this? If you're not used to well, this is how this was constructed, so I can go over here and look at this and, oh, here's the problem. That was a real issue for us. So what did you all learn besides putting a dashboard together? What have you learned from this entire process? No one wants to say. I learned nothing. Yeah, I learned that pandemics suck.
That's for sure. Well, some of the things that we talked about last time is that, there were just some geoprocessing tools that I got acquainted with throughout this process that, maybe I'd never used before or used sparingly before. We talked about, the pivot tool, which is something I never knew was there, but proved to be really helpful in compiling the data. I'd never really treated ArcGIS Online as just a regular data store like any other data store. So storing data up there and using it into the ArcGIS Pro project just the same as that we're any other database. Like I always knew that you could do it, but it's not something that I had done previously. So I think that was helpful for me. And really just, learned a ton about data views in ArcGIS Online. Some of the, how to join the most recent record of one table to the corresponding geometry in a different feature class. That just seems so much easier in ArcGIS Online actually than anywhere else. And it's kind of like, why isn't it this easy anywhere else? So I think, I gained a better appreciation maybe of, trying to, better understanding what the best tool for the job is. And hopefully that carries forward into some of the other projects that I work on.
I know I learned a ton about the ArcGIS dashboard. I was never really familiar with it before this. But I know, Kim, you mentioned, what did you learn besides from dashboard building? I think that one really valuable skill that I was able to grow and kind of hone was rapid project management. And it was something that I had, gotten a taste of working for the state in emergency management, when you kind of understand that you can't let perfect be the enemy of good, as they say, and a blurry picture is better than no picture at all. So just really helping to identify the key concepts that you want to communicate with a project, and working around constraints that come up. So really helpful tool for us, or just process, was what do we need it to look like? What does the data actually look like? How do we bridge the gap? And sometimes it was, we need to put something out there, like with our vaccination data, we need to put something out there. What is the maximum amount of data that we have available to us, and how can we work the graphics around that? So sometimes you had just a huge, massive amount of data that you really needed to winnow down into this is the important stuff. And on the other side, you have, this is a really important concept. Let's, fill every graph we can with something from whatever data that is available to us. So yes, the race against the clock, because every tab, every graph, every chart is valuable and should be out there. Definitely was a crash course in project development.
Yeah, for sure. I can mirror a lot of what both of you said, as far as both soft and hard skills. What you were saying about the fuzzy picture being better than the clear one, or no picture at all, really rang true for me, because we often tried to do that too, where we would just want to get something out there just to let the public know that we were watching it. And we could always, put more detail in there next week. And, and I think, I mean, I've heard, we can talk about this in a minute, but we were somewhat sheltered by our PIOs from all of the comments and stuff, but that's public information officer, in case you are not involved in emergency management lingo. But it seemed like people were appreciating, the efforts that we were going through to inform the public. As far as more technical stuff, I would definitely agree with Eric about wow, this pivot table thing is pretty cool. I didn't know, a lot of things you get thrown into something very different than what we usually do. We're used to dealing with parcels and addresses and, street signs and who knows what else. But, this was a very different topic for a lot of us, I think. And, getting kind of tuned in to the public health sector and, what they might be looking for and the way they have to communicate their, it's this fine balance of getting information out there and not panicking anyone, and it's, and it's getting your message on point and making sure everyone knows that to keep that same message and all that kind of stuff. I segued there a little bit too early. Technical stuff. The ARC Online stuff, you know, we've been using ARC Online for a really long time for lots of other things, but never anything this big, and never anything this public. So, you know, learning how to work with the views and you know, making sure the data was secure, and, you know, the people who needed to see it saw it, and not one person further. You know, we weren't necessarily used to working with HIPAA data before. So that was all a pretty big learning experience. And I now have about 18 more acronyms that I know in my head than I did before working with public health. So, so we are at 1:45. We had one more thing on our list, I think.
Yeah, start sending your questions in.
Huh?
So start sending questions in. I would, like, if you have anything.
Yes, if anyone has any questions, chat them up. Oh, hey, look at that. Do you see any efficiencies that could be leveraged to plan for future public health issues? The short answer is absolutely. Now that we kind of know, I mean, you know, hopefully we'll never have to do this again, but even for smaller events, you know, maybe it's getting everyone to get flu shots again next year, or, you know, whatever the case may be. I think there's some definite segues into more normal, we'll call it, public health education, and getting that information out to the public. I'll let the other two speak.
Yeah, I would say even the relationships that were built between the GIS staff and the public health staff. I mean,
Yeah,
I think there's
sure.
a lot more appreciation now from both sides of what each other does. So
Absolutely.
hopefully that allows us to get at the same table together and actually do a little bit more planning. And you know, I don't know how you plan specifically for this, but I think I think we can. You know, this is the type of data we might be interested in, and this is what the public would be interested in seeing. And I do think that we can do some of those pre-planning exercises a lot more effectively now, having gone through this.
Definitely. I would also add to Eric's point about building those relationships. I think it's very common in the GIS world and the tech world of sometimes if you are speaking with someone who doesn't have a GIS background, at times can feel like you're speaking two different languages, and folks may not know the power of GIS or what is available to them, what questions you can help them answer. And that's part of all of our jobs, to explain, hey, I know you're looking at it this way, and it's, you know, we're looking maybe at descriptive analytics, but we can really move beyond that. And I think this overall, with all the dashboards going on in the state and the country, and just the role of GIS in this pandemic, has been a huge demonstration to public health. These are very concrete ways that we can help you with your mission. And I know it has also attracted a lot of attention from many other agencies and departments and fields outside of public health who see what GIS can do for them, and now have probably started knocking on all of our doors.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of segues into Kyle's question. What's next for GIS and location technology for your organizations? What types of content and projects related to public health are on the horizon? I'm not sure about public health. I think it will take them, like, once this is all over, whenever that happens. I'm hoping there'll be some sort of debrief. We usually do that in emergency management after an emergency. I'm assuming we're going to do something similar. And, you know, hopefully that's our inroads to say, okay, this is over, but what else can we do for you? And, you know, now that we kind of know their language a little bit, you know, we don't have to say the word geolocate, because that makes their face go kind of go, what? You know, it's learning how to talk to them in their language and not ours. You know, that's, and I could go back to what I learned about pandemic GIS. So as far as other departments, Public Works is probably our next big one. They were already kind of starting to sniff around before this all happened, and then we kind of had to drop a lot of stuff. So I think they're going to be our next one, that are, you know, that they'll, to kind of keep track of, you know, their work orders and their, you know, that's all that dashboardy stuff can apply to them too. So how about you guys?
So we're going to go through a little bit of a transition here, in that our public health officer is leaving our Washington Ozaukee County at the end of the month and heading down to Milwaukee County. So you know, kind of as that transition happens, you know, there's potential that we'll have to, you know, kind of reacquaint ourselves with the new leadership there. That said, there has already been talk about just using dashboards and GIS in general to do more reporting on really all the activities of the health department, because of the public relations component to that. And they've also expressed some serious interest in getting accounts set up in our portal, so that they can use it for internal situational awareness, which would be really exciting to see that come to fruition.
Cool.
So Milwaukee County declared racism a public health crisis in May of 2019 and committed to the vision that by achieving racial equity, Milwaukee is the healthiest county in Wisconsin. So this pandemic, I think everyone has seen the national headlines, that the pandemic has really laid bare the disparities in health outcomes based on race and ethnicity. And with racial equity being a huge focus for the county moving forward, I think this, really, really hammers home the role of geography in public health. If you can predict a person's health outcomes by their zip code, that leaves you a lot of room for intervention, especially in a community, in a county as segregated as Milwaukee County. And I know there's a really, really exciting project coming down the pike between our Milwaukee County Land Information Office, our Office on African American Affairs. They're partnering up with ESRI and GARE, which is the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, to help develop some layers and potentially projects that involve racial equity and health equity. And I think that is going to feed into a lot of projects that we do moving forward, with the hope that we do have a lot of, I just know from working with our EMS folks, we're really excited to start looking geographically more at our EMS data and hopefully incorporate some of that output from our LIO and ESRI and GARE to really make racial equity a part of everything we do, particularly when it comes to health.
That's awesome. I love it. I'm looking forward, as a Milwaukee County resident, I'm looking forward to seeing that. Now I lost my train of thought. There was something else I was gonna say. Oh, the other thing I thought of that I would like to come out of this is, you know, and Kim Christman is going to talk about her hub site next. So this is a good segue for us. Is, you know, we do have a license of hub, but we haven't really gotten very many people interested in everything that can do as some sort of public initiative or, you know, public project or something like that. So I'm kind of hoping that with all of the screen time we've gotten in front of people's faces, that it won't sound quite so scary, and people will be more willing to jump in and you know, put their input about, you know, whatever topic we put up there, or whatever initiative that comes down the pike. So I've been told we have 6 minutes. Are we all talked out though? Does anyone else have any questions in the audience?
Definitely time for a question if somebody has one. Hearing none.
Kim, Eric, I got a question for you guys.
Yes.
Site being 2020. I don't know if this was already asked, but what are something that you guys would do differently?
Oh,
no,
good
now.
question. Good question. I would offload my responsibilities a lot sooner. I'm not even joking. Yeah, that was hard. I could have done that better. I don't know. I think I would have designed some of our stuff a little different. And sometimes, you know, I have the opportunity to, you know, do that as we go along, like, oh, this isn't working, let's do this. But it would have been helpful to maybe step back a little bit, even as we were like down in the trenches trying to get this one tab up or something like that, to step back and say, what else might they want in the future? And then design it a little more elastically so it could, you know, things could get plugged in a little better, or easier. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think what you just hit on, Kim, is probably the biggest point for me. You know, when we stood these things up, we were doing it for the ask at that time. I mean, we didn't really have time to think of, you know, what the whole picture was going to look like, so that when we needed to add a piece on, oftentimes like, well, now I got to redo half of what I did before in order to accommodate that. So, you know, I think if you were building this from scratch, you would have, you know, tried to make it, I don't know if scalable is the right word, but you know, somehow you can, you know, continue to build on it without having to redo everything. And yeah, I mean, I agree with Kim. I mean, it was doing this 7 days a week, and Zach mentioned it earlier too. You know, it was a real grind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're sitting at home on a Sunday afternoon, and it's like, boy, the last thing I really want to think of, you know, hoping that death count doesn't tick up today. You know, it was tough. So, you know, anything you can do for your own sanity, and you know, get support, you know, so that you're not the only person doing it, I think would have been helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely echo both of your sentiments on those topics. I think we're all of us in the same boat on that, and probably quite a majority of the folks in this chat too. One thing that I was thinking about over the last few days or weeks was to sort of have an ongoing file of the decisions that we made and our justifications for doing that. So having our metadata on the direction of what we were doing, because it's so easy to get caught up in like, all right, this needs to go live now. How do we present it? Okay, well, this looks to be the best way. Great. All right, we're going live with this. And then when somebody asks you 3 months later, like, why are you reporting numbers in these ways? To go and dig back through and to find that specific email chain was always like a pain. So I think I got to keep better metadata on the overall decision-making process. That's something I really hope to do moving forward.
That's a great idea. I love it. I should have done the same.
Hindsight 2020.
Yeah. Literally and figuratively. We have one more question, quick, if we can fit it in, for Zach specifically. Were you able to see evidence of redlining relating to race and ethnicity much easier with the dashboard?
That is a great question. And we have not explicitly looked at our data that we have on the dashboard and compared it with redlining data available. I know that there are some good resources out there, some GIS layers of historical redlining. I definitely think that would be a very interesting project going forward if somebody has the passion to kind of take that up, or something we might have to look into once we wind down our UEOC. Definitely there, yeah. From what I know about Milwaukee County and the coronavirus, it'd be a very, very interesting exploration.
Awesome.
With
I think we're out of time, yes?
yes, thank you. Thank you, all three of you. That was a great presentation.